Yeah, so when we talk numbers here and things, obviously there's still stuff going on. So discuss guys that we have papers. So we have 23 signees, 3 junior college kids. A really good part is 16 mid-years. So especially as we know we need defensive help. If you watched our games this year, you know that. And so we knew we needed to sign defensive players, especially defensive line and secondary, with a lot of returning linebacker numbers that we have. So of the 13 defensive players so far, 11 of those guys are mid-years, which is huge because if we need guys to help next year, obviously them being here next month, some of them even being here next week for bowl practices will be huge. I think it's a really good class. We got to remember, where we're at with the COVID issues. I've said when that happened in these dead periods, that would, the schools, the bigger schools that had, been winning over the last few years, I think that was going to help them because if kids can't go visit places, it's hard to win them over. And you can't go in their homes, they can't come see you. So I think a lot of times kids are just going to go with what they know, maybe what they've already seen, or who's been playing in major bowl games the last few years. So I think our assistant coaches did a really good job utilizing the Zooms and trying to do the best that we could. Kids not coming here, which I think is one of the strong points here, the game day environment, the pregame, the town, the university. So just made the most of the situation that we were in. And I think with that being said, to sign a top 20 class, you got to give a lot of credit to our recruiting people and our assistant coaches.
Parrish, go ahead with the question.
Lane, the word commitment gets thrown around a lot in recruiting, but when you hear that a player is committed to another school, does that change your approach, or what is your approach to recruiting a player that has been committed?
It doesn't mean anything. Until a kid signs, it really doesn't mean anything. They're committed. All it does is tell you, who your challenge is, who you're going against. So that's why we don't push for early commitments, which if you look at us, a month, 2 ago, I'm sure that everybody thought we suck, and can't recruit. So there's kind of a plan when you've been doing this long enough. So we don't care about early commitments. But other guys, and a number of our guys that signed today, had told us a long time ago they were coming, and we told them not to put it out. So it's all game until they sign.
How do you project MJ Daniels? One position, more than one position, two sides of the ball. What do y'all see for him?
I think potentially could play a little bit. Definitely a special teams offense, but primarily a defensive player. One that could play corner, safety, nickel. We've talked about all the spots, and really good player, really good late get, and to have those papers this morning while everybody else was watching, his press conference and all that was pretty exciting.
John, go ahead.
Lane, what did you kind of see from Luke Galtmeyer that really stood out to you, and what are your kind of thoughts on him, and what do you think he's going to kind of bring to your team?
Well, I think he's got special talent. I think he's a natural leader, really good family, good feet, quick release, good arm angle throws. Just really excited about him, and I think you could see some of his leadership in the way that he recruited. I think people say, what was the turn in recruiting? I think one was on-field performance, by us playing well and showing, our players having fun, excitement, the uniforms, the energy, and then I think the second thing was Luke turning, kind of became a cool thing to do, and he helped recruit these guys too.
And I know obviously Matt's coming back, but do you kind of see a scenario where Luke could really challenge Matt for that starting quarterback job?
I don't think that, but we think he's got a chance to be a really good player. I don't think he's going to beat out Matt. I think Matt's going to come back as the number one quarterback in all of college football, and I think his numbers this year, are as good as anybody in the country. And so, you know, we got, I'd take him over anybody. And I love Mac, but I think this kid's really unique, really special, and just his first semester with us on the field.
David, go ahead.
Lane, you mentioned the mid-year enrollees, and some of them will be joining the team next week. Have you got an idea of the number of those guys that'll be with y'all next week? And secondly, how do you begin to integrate those guys into bowl practices?
I don't know that yet. You know, we don't know what bowl we're in, so we don't know the date of that and how far back till we start practices. So we got no idea about that stuff. And I do not know which ones will be here next week. I just know that as of now, we got 16 that'll be here in January.
How do you integrate the ones that will be there if there's an opportunity for them to practice?
Well, they're going to do more just basic stuff with us just to get a feel for them. Probably go play service team for us to prepare for the bowl opponent. You know, we won't have enough time to integrate them in, you know, with our ones and twos, obviously, because they won't be playing in the game.
Nick?
Lane, you talked about making those pushes for the DBs and the defensive linemen. What kind of is the pitch to those guys when they're seeing the on-field product and they know there's that chance to play early maybe? Is that kind of what the pitch is for you guys?
Yeah, just don't watch the game. So, whenever you are performing, you know, not well on the side of the ball, you don't like that, but there is a recruiting side to it too. You know, just like if you're a really bad team, you know, period, on all sides, and kids say, okay, I can go there and play quicker. So, luckily, that's just the case on defense right now here. So, I think these guys saw that. You know, these guys had a lot of choices of places to go, very highly recruited kids, and I think they saw a chance to come play early in the SEC at a program that really is, you know, a few stops away from, you know, being in the top 15 probably.
Seems like a lot of the defensive backs that you targeted in this class are guys who can play corner, safety, nickel, all of the positions. What's the advantage of going after these guys who can be super versatile in the backfield?
Yeah, it just helps the coordinator, you know, that he can play a lot of different things and you can disguise things, and all of a sudden, you know, your nickel's going back to play the middle third or deep half. And so the better players you can get, the more athletic players you can get, the better. You know, we've always tried to even find, you know, quarterbacks ended up being DBs, so, you know, that they got, you know, really good field awareness to play all the different spots.
Nancy?
Coach, talk about the job that Deke Adams has done for this class. I know Ole Miss has had trouble with the defensive line over the past few classes. Just kind of talk about the job he did.
Did a really good job. We're still going. Hopefully 2 more there. So, and a huge need. We said DBs and D-line, but D-line number 1. You know, you guys know better than me that, you know, there's been a struggle here the last few years, and, you know, when we got here, we saw that, unfortunately, you know, with the lack of depth there. So, big need for us, and something that was hard to address in the first class just because we got here so late.
Follow-up question with the defensive backs. I believe my count is you got 9 defensive backs that's going to enter the January camp. Report to you in January. How do you implement so many new guys going in there?
I got 8, so and all 8 are mid-years, which is crazy, which is awesome because you're talking about 8 high school kids, not junior college kids, for 8 high school mid-years. That's pretty amazing. So they'll be in there, and that position obviously plays a lot of special teams too, which is great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nick?
Do you have a number in mind of how many people you want to take in February, or are you going to kind of try and stay flexible like you did last year?
We're always flexible. This is challenging because, you know, there were a number of kids that wanted to come today that we had to say no to just because of, you know, free agency that's coming. So it's really like this was signing day, then there's another signing day in February. So how many spots you gonna leave for that? Then you got free agency coming up for the first time in college football history, you know, with the one-time transfer, which telling you, going through these numbers, these schools aren't going to have many spots. So this one-time transfer thing is great for kids and everybody wants it, but it's not going to be that great for kids in the end, because there's going to be a lot of kids that think they're going somewhere, and there's no spots because we're capped now too with this other cap the last couple of years. So unfortunately, all these kids are think they're going to go somewhere, and they're not going to have places to go.
You kind of bring up that idea of having to tell kids that want to come that they can't. How difficult are those conversations, and how do you handle those situations where you think you can take a kid and then last minute you can't?
It's difficult, it happens everywhere, but it happens especially when, you kind of start the year slow from a recruiting standpoint, just because we hadn't been here. And remember, we're signing a lot of these kids we have never met in person. So it was a strange year. And then when all this energy started happening in the program, and, like the shirt they sent me, exciting team, and these kids say it, all of a sudden, I wish we had 50 scholarships, very, very different than 12 months ago. Our program's in a much different place, the way that people view our program, specifically parents and recruits, than 12 months ago. I mean, it's like we're at a different school.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, Lane, I saw your Twitter feed today. You having some fun. I know you've been wearing the Flipness shirts, and I saw you retweet something referring to Jackson State. I guess for you, what's your reaction on what you and Dion have done during this recruiting period with flipping some big time names?
Well, I was just said retweet if you didn't lose anybody to Jackson State, so we didn't, so I just hit retweet. That's awesome what he's doing. Really neat, really cool. I mean, I walked by the TV on the way to practice. He's on ESPN today, and so I've said it before. You hire a head coach. Sometimes it helps your football program. Sometimes you hire a unique head coach. It helps your entire university and changes the perception of your university and the amount of energy and about how many kids want to go to the school, how many applications come in. So, it's why football has always been the driving forces at schools. I'm sure that's happening there.
David, go ahead.
Lane, you signed the kicker, Caden Costa, in this class. If you would, just kind of tell us what you think he's going to bring to the program that you used a scholarship on a kicker.
Well, this position's hard to evaluate, obviously, for everybody, but especially in college, because it's not like the NFL where you have all the time with them. So we've always kind of ended up leaning on people that's their thing, Chris Saylor, other people that work with the kids and stuff. So, those people raved about him. I think that he won a lot of areas in the kicking camp, that they had him number one in a number of areas. So I've always said, if you find a special one, put him on scholarship. Everybody wants to do the walk-on thing. I said, well, that sounds great. Everybody said, oh, don't waste a scholarship, until you're at the end of the game, you lose the game for wide right. So I bet Ed Ogeron's pretty happy that he's got a kicker on scholarship, so after Saturday.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, Lane, and just with your class that you're bringing in, I guess in your experience, and even the situation that you are in now, what do you think is the year that you'll kind of get the return on your investment in these recruits? I've heard coaches say, you only see what players can reach their potential maybe 3 years after they come in. I guess for you, what's kind of that time frame for you do you want to see a return?
Well, we've never stayed anywhere that long, so I'm not really sure how that works. But that was a joke. Okay, Joe? I think, a lot of times year 3, especially with high school kids, but I think because of all the transfers that are going to happen at places and stuff, I think you're going to see more than ever. You're going to be forced to play kids, in their first year. So I think you'll see an impact next year.
Nick?
Just for Saturday, did all the tests you expected this week come back clean? Are you back up as close to full slate as you can be?
We are. We are back. The last guys are trickling in here yesterday and today, and I think we've been 3 or 4 tests in a row with nothing. So hopefully we can keep that up here for the next few days.